Welcome to Global Connections on ThinkTech Hawaii. I'm your host, Jay Fidell. Today, we're going to talk about the viability of Trump's Gaza plan. How does Trump's plan change the dynamics? Our guest for the show is Roopmati Khandekar, geopolitical analyst. Welcome, Roopmati. Thank you for being here.
Hello, Ajay. Thank you for having me on your show. Always my pleasure.
The terror attack of October 7th was unprecedented and should never happen again. This concern is central to the U.S. presence in Gaza right now, which was a breeding ground for terrorists who have been determined to destroy Israel. So we should examine today exactly what Trump has proposed, why he has proposed it, and the viability of that plan. Will it work or not? Roopmati, I guess the first question I would like to ask you is, what is the plan? What is Trump's plan, point for point?
Jay, it's an eccentric plan by an eccentric politician that we have right now at the head of the United States. So the blueprint of the Trump plan is to make the Gaza Strip the Riviera of the Middle East. So it is sounding very pompous and very nice. And the viability of this plan is what we are going to discuss. And so during Netanyahu's trip to Washington, Trump laid out this plan that was the mass transfer of Palestinians out of Gaza, following by the United States taking over, and the developer-in-chief announced that it would develop it. So this Trump's campaign team was presented this plan earlier by Gaza's reconstruction by economists known as Joseph Pelsman. Now, he sent this 49-page report, Jay. It was an economic plan for rebuilding Gaza, and it was a build, operate, and transfer approach to in July he presented it, and Pelsman claimed that this would offer an opportunity for a new and fresh approach to an old problem. So Trump has lapped it up and stunned the world with his announcement that he wants to develop Gaza Strip, and Gaza is a place of destruction and war, and the Palestinians cannot return to it again. So when Netanyahu comes, you see Netanyahu grinning towards it. So it was Netanyahu's goals were very well defined. He wanted to get rid of Hamas. He wanted to eliminate every problem that would make Israel face a possibility of a October 7 attack again. And this was falling in line with that. Why? Because, Jay, it was this Trump plan. It's talking of the day after. What happens after this war, the reconstruction, and that would have always included the Palestine Liberation Organization and the Palestine Authority in any plan for reconstruction, for development, for building Gaza people. So the post-war period would have had the same approach as before, as several decades that we have faced, and Israel would be in the same rut that it has been for these decades. So this is a completely different approach because it has a better vision for Israel. Now, why this is? Because this Exodus plan is very, very visually good, because Hamas has always operated in populated areas, Jay, and it has operated behind the defenses of the civilian people. If you afford, and so many people who left the Gaza Strip, how many Hamas fighters have left in the guise of civilians, protected by civilians, and they are going to return back to the place which was presented, the key was presented to them, like you said, in 2005. They could do whatever they want. They would thrive. They would be civilized. They would do anything. What did they choose to do? They built tunnels as big as New York and London to attack Israel time in and time out, to hide terrorists like rats and attack Israel whenever they wanted. The proximity of the Gaza Strip is such that Israel was always on the back foot. So this Riviera of the East that he talks about, and rebuilding Gaza without the Gazians or the Palestine people, is, I feel that it's a blueprint for everlasting peace, Jay, because He started with the Jerusalem consulate, the U.S. consulate, the Abraham Accords, and this falls in line with that vision of his to make Israel very, very protected. Because see, Israel is extremely vulnerable. We know from the October 7, and for 15 months they have been 13 months they have been fighting on 7-9 fronts. It's not possible for any country to sustain this. So to have an ally like the US close to you is just going to make Israel stronger.
We all wondered whether he was serious. We all wondered whether he had too much for lunch and had this brilliant idea out of nowhere, just pull it out of nowhere. Sort of like the bleach, where he pulled the bleach out as a solution to COVID, and there he goes, proposing this plan, which seemed ridiculous, at least initially. And then he drills down. He's been drilling down ever since. So as if to say, well, no, I am serious. I really want to do this. And it's I, because he hasn't had any confirmation, from the Congress, or he hasn't had any confirmation from the people, the think tanks, the diplomatic organizations that try to get a handle on what's going on in the Middle East. This is all from him, all from him. On the other hand, and I wanted to ask you about this, there are some elements to this plan that are very interesting. Number one is, Bill Clinton set aside $1 billion back in the 90s to do exactly the same thing, to build destination resort properties on the Mediterranean in Gaza. And I think he gave them the money, but they didn't build anything. Instead, they applied that to building tunnels, as you said, which is really tragic. And I don't think Bill Clinton's plan was the same or as aggressive and detailed as Trump. And I don't think he meant to move anybody out of Gaza, but he did mean to create a kind of beachfront resort area where, the Palestinians could be employed, there could be a source of money. I mean, there really is no economy. There has been no economy in Gaza except for building tunnels, which isn't really an economy at all. As opposed to the kibbutzim all over Israel, where they make the desert bloom and grow great agricultural products, where everybody is happily engaged in productive activities, and it's an economy. There is no economy. There has never been an economy in the Palestinian Gaza. At the same time, I find it very interesting that he would move people out of Gaza, and thus he would separate them from whatever weapons are left there, from whatever tunnels are left there. And I am sure to a moral certainty that there are weapons left there. There are tunnels left there. Those weapons are still being used. I mean, the Palestinians complain that Israel has shot a number of its people in the course of this truce, the ceasefire. But in fact, they're responding to having Palestinians shoot at them, or Hamas shoot at them. I don't know why the press doesn't cover both sides of that story. But the biggest complaint seems to be, you're going to move us away from our, quote, homeland, end quote. And that doesn't really make sense to me. It's not really their homeland. If Trump's promise comes true, I don't think he can do it, but if his promise comes true, then it would be, at least by definition, a very pleasant place. And they could have their own economy. And they could have a peaceful coexistence with whatever country they're located in. And they would be separated, my point. They would be separated from the weapons, separated from the tunnels, and that would give Israel a lot of comfort. It would give Trump and everyone a lot of comfort. So there are, maybe it's by accident, maybe he didn't think it through, but it actually works out to be a plan which could be very valuable. But let me ask you the larger looming question is, can he do this? So far, he hasn't gotten anybody to agree. The think tank establishment in the U.S., no. The State Department doesn't count because he controls that. Egypt, no. Jordan, yesterday, no. There's no country. There's no country that Saudi Arabia. No. How can he do this when he can't find anybody who would take the Palestinians? Is this dead on arrival? This thing?
Jay, you're so right about the point that he separates them from the weapons that are still lying over there. And Jay, the Gaza Strip was described as the biggest open air prison. So they showed a sense of dissatisfaction when they were given complete autonomy in this region. And Trump's plan, the viability of it, will be tested very, very acutely because, as you see, Jordan has come in and the king has agreed to take 2,000 cancer-stricken children rather than the 2.3 million Palestinian, a chunk of that. So we have a placement to be done of 2.3 million Palestinians. So Egypt will be coming in, I think, this week. He's pursuing it step by step. And you see, he is serious about this when, why? Because he literally is threatening Jordan. The US gives them $1.4 billion in military aid. So he has threatened to stop all of that if they don't agree. And so King Abdullah has played it safe and said that he agrees to Trump's plan. Trump is a messenger of peace, but he wants Egypt to put forth their plan. And then they're all planning to meet in Saudi Arabia to discuss this. And Saudi Arabia has said that it's not going to sponsor anything of this. So the plan lies in loom. But Jay, why are they not agreeing to take a single Palestinian person? Because they know the kind of nuisance these Palestinians created. And if you see the clips on the television, you see a hostage being released, see the chaos that one chunk of, say, 500 or 100 people can cause. So you can imagine 2.3 million people at the doorstep of Israel, constantly waiting to destroy Israel, even at the cost of their own lives, is a very, very dangerous situation to live in. And if, fingers crossed, if Trump's plan works, Israel will secure one front, Jay, from which it is being heckled day in and day out every moment. So it's just that, however, what do you say? It is a megalomaniac decision that is taken. But if it works, even if there's a 1% chance that it works, it is going to help Israel in such a way that it will not allow Hamas to regroup. All these civilians who are used to forming a group and protecting the Hamas people. The UNRWA was used to, the skits of the children in school were to kill Israeli soldiers. This was the kind of upbringing that was going on in. It was a indoctrination of such a kind that it was inbuilt in their on the motherboard. They had it in the blood to go and kill Israel. So we don't want something like that. So even if it's a plan to build a resort, a colony, or whatever, it is much more better than asking the Palestinians to come back, to settle back, to regroup, to regenerate, to rejuvenate, and then come and attack Israel again. That is just not, because they will wait for another few years. But be sure, Jay, even if it's a group of 10 people, they will want to go and attack a busy street in Israel, a cafe in Israel, a disco in Israel. So this kind of attack on civilians is not going to be acceptable, because October 7, everybody was asleep. It was a terrorist attack, and it turned into a media frenzy of Israel versus Hamas. It was never Israel versus, it was Hamas versus the civilians and families of Israel. It never played in that way. And I think Israel has spent such a chunk of its time, which it could have used for growing its economy, development, everything, in fighting these fronts. If the possibility of Jordan not supporting, Egypt not supporting, Saudi Arabia not supporting. The United States has military bases worldwide, Jay, numbering 750 in over 80 countries. Let's go for another military base close to an ally where you don't have to, go. There's so many troops in the Middle East, around 40,000 service members in the Middle East, and 19 sites over 8 countries we have of the United States, in Bahrain, Egypt, Iraq, Israel, Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Syria, and the UAE. So Gaza Strip becomes another military base. We have something in the Diego Garcia also in the Indian Ocean. So, Jay, it's never too late to let go of this, because it is generally this, Jay. You can't afford to give Gaza back in the hands of the Palestinians who staged such a terror attack, which was unprecedented, Jay.
Yeah, well, there's so many considerations here. It just dawned on me while you were speaking that one of the objections that the Palestinians have to being moved, or rather, one of the objections they have is that Israel has broken the truce. And one of the elements of that violation, they claim, is Israel's failure to deliver or allow the delivery of tents. They expected to have thousands of tents coming in, so the Palestinians returning to the rubble of their earlier, buildings would have a place to sleep and so forth. But it strikes me that this failure to deliver the tents took place after Trump announced his plan. And so what does that mean? Well, if you want to move somebody out, don't give them a tent. That'll give them a place to stay. So there's all kinds of things under the hood here. I also want to mention that Jordan and Egypt, are going to be interested in money from Trump. Now, whether Trump can organize that money is another question, because he's lost credibility in his tariff play in Canada, Mexico, and his aggressive moves on the Panama Canal and Greenland. And so, his credibility may not be as high as it needs to be for people to believe him, for these countries and leaders to believe him that he will, in fact, provide the money he says he will provide. I mean, I think the level of trust must be pretty low right now if they read the newspaper and watch the global TV. However, if he can come up with the money and make them believe he's going to come up with the money, I think they might agree, because it's not only the money that he would give, say, Jordan or Egypt to take the Palestinians. It's also the bases that he would build. The other what you called it before is something close to Israel to stabilize, if you will, the Middle East. Finally, I want to mention that Jordan is a relatively stable country. King Abdullah does a pretty good job at keeping the lid on things. Now, one of their problems is the border with, I guess it's the border with Syria. They have a common border with Syria. And what's coming from Syria is these pills, Captagon pills. Captagon pills are habit-forming drugs. And there are virtually billions of them that El-Assad created. He was a big drug dealer, not only in the Middle East, but everywhere. And although he left, fact is that his army was involved in making these pills and distributing and selling these pills. And these pills traditionally cross the border from Syria to Jordan. So Jordan has had to harden its border against Syria, even now, to keep these Captagon pills out. Jordan is interested in stability. Jordan probably is qualified to set aside some land. I mean, they got desert all over. They got lots of land, right? Aside some land for the Palestinians and keep them somehow, stable, and avoid having them either attack Jordan, which is a possibility, or go the other way and attack Israel. So if there's one country, I think, that could be relied on if they make a promise, and they make a promise on the basis of some transactional money thing, it would be Jordan. So although Trump hasn't gotten anybody to agree just yet, he hasn't stopped. He's working both of those countries, and I suppose he's also working Saudi Arabia to try to soften the resistance to his plan. And finally, one other point I want to make is that we here in Hawaii, we know about destination resorts. We know that the ocean, the water, the weather, it's all very, very attractive. And, if he or or for that matter, any organization he puts together, can create a beachfront property, a beachfront set of properties along the Mediterranean, and keep it stable and safe and secure, and not violent in any way. People would come from around the world. And these properties, Trump knows about hotels. He's I wouldn't say he's built them, but he's gotten involved in a number of them. Sometimes successful and sometimes bankrupt, but he's gotten involved in a number of them, and he could probably create or supervise the creation of some really nice hotel properties along the water. And the water there is very nice. It's the Mediterranean. Weather is good. The beach is nice. You've seen pictures. It wouldn't be that hard to do it. And he could create a community in the rest of Gaza that would support those hotels, like with jobs and industry of some kind to help the hospitality industry, just like we have here in Hawaii. So, that is a pretty appealing picture. The question, and I put it to you again, the question is, can he pull it off? Can he pull it off when he's doing crazy things here at home, when he's doing crazy things abroad, when he's losing credibility every single day, and when nobody wants to cooperate with him in the Middle East? That sounds like it's really not doable.
True, Jay. It is sounding a little bit out of the box, but this Riviera of the Middle East that he talks about, he's going to keep it. He talks of it being open to all the settlers who want to come and who can buy a property there. So they have to be a certain, status to be able to buy a beachfront property. You don't have the crowd who will come in and just purchase or settle for the sake of just killing Israel. They will have other motives to buy a beachfront property. That is the main aim, to bring better-minded people close to that area. And Jay, when these people were given a chance to settle and stay for decades, it's not been easy. It's not been a short time. They've been given decades to settle on this property, and they've been given a free hand. But to nurture terrorist activities and not care of the cost of life to be able to destroy Israel is never a chance to be taken again. Jay, the kind of money that he's been saving on USAID and closing all the programs, I think he can divert those funds for a better cause. And he's taken concrete steps, Jay. The consulate in Jerusalem was a big thing. I feel that this would be a very good step if it works. It's really, really fingers crossed, because this man has come up with one idea which is not revolutionary. It's blasted the entire two-nation theory, the settlement of the Palestinians back again, the reconstruction plan, the giving them of a better life, the standard of life, the starvation cases in the ICJ. All this thing will come to a standstill. They were comparing Gaza to Somalia, Jay, and dragging Israel to court for this. I mean, why would you have that kind of a neighbor? It's much better to have a U.S. military base with beachfront properties and develop the Riviera like it should be. It is, like you said, it is a very, it's got all the tenets of being a fabulous beachfront place. It can bank on those properties, on those aspects, and develop. Cyprus is such a small place, but it thrives on tourism, it thrives on everything. And Israel during the good times has always shown itself as a good tourist destination. You visit as a historical place. This will become a kind of hospitality support to Israel as a historical city. It will become a supporting beachfront property. So it's good, Jay. It's good. I know we are going way across the line, but I think it's going to be good, Jay.
Let me add this, that part of this has to be that whoever controls, the area, whoever controls Gaza under this model, however the model shapes up, has to be a civil society. It has to be, I hate to use this term right now, but it has to be a community that respects the law, respects personal security, a community that avoids corruption. There have been charges that Netanyahu has been corrupt. I I never saw that played out, but that a lot of people have said that he is a corrupt leader. You can't have that. Can't have corruption. And a lot of people think that Trump is a corrupt leader. We've seen plenty of evidence of that, haven't we? Even over the past few weeks. It can't be that. It can't be corruption. And what comes to mind actually is that Israel, by and large, is not corrupt. It's a nation of laws, and it's a democracy. And I think the way to organize that land is to just bring it under the rubric of Israel and have it operate like other parts of Israel. You know, if you've ever been to Tel Aviv, you know that Tel Aviv is a really nice beachfront property. There's a boardwalk there. There are great restaurants and hotels. There's a lovely beach. I mean, all you have to do is repeat that kind of development, and you'd have a working model in Gaza, and under the government, however the government is, extended into Gaza. So all of that is very attractive. But you know what? There have been a number of writers that have suggested the following four options to explain why Trump is raising this. Let me tell you what they are. Okay. The first is that he's trying to distract everybody from what he is doing behind his back and the wrecking ball against the United States government with Elon Musk and so forth, and our civil liberties and the press, and DEI and all the American values. So he's distracting us. That's one. Two is he has got some other plan in mind, and this is merely a negotiating point to use, sort of like the hostages are assets. They're negotiating points. So this is a negotiating point that he would use vis-a-vis something else he wants, either in the Middle East, in Europe, in the U.S., and he plays it out that way. The third part, this is all speculation. The third possibility is that he wants to look like Richard Nixon. He wants to look like the Mad King. They come up with all this stuff out of nowhere, out of a dark place, all of a sudden. Okay, surprise, surprise, like Bleach against COVID, and make people think that he's, a wild man, and thus achieve the power that a wild man has. So this is in that analysis. This is just another element of achieving power through being wild and unpredictable. And the last one is very interesting. It's part of his Manifest Destiny initiative. He wants to expand the territory of the United States into Panama, into Greenland, wherever else, who knows what. And so he's grabbing another piece of territory and achieving some sort of expansionist result. Those are the four possibilities. And I can't settle on any one of them, although I tell you what, I favor that it's a distraction, that it's a crock. Everybody knows it's a crock. Everybody knows he can't do it, won't happen. But he's using it as a way to deflect attention and get attention for other things. Your thoughts, please, about whether this is only a distraction or whether it has legs on any of those other three options.
Jay, I agree with your distraction, but I want it to have legs. The point is that I really want it to have legs with fervor and with lots of passion that I say this, that this plan should work. It will keep Hamas out of that territory. It will keep the Iranian claw out of close to Israel. And Jay, however crazy that it sounds, it has to work because it has come on his ego now. And we know he's a very, very egoistic person. So when it comes to his ego, he will show the world that it can work. And I hope he tries to do this, that just to show the world that he can do it. It's already demolished. There's nothing in Palestine remaining. So why the Palestinians are returning back to Gaza is a different issue. None of the houses are standing. It's been razed to the ground. So the motive behind their return is also very dicey, Jay. They want to return because they don't have the aim of love for the land. They have the hate for Israel that makes them come back to Gaza. And that is what we have to destroy with the plan as crazy as this. Because, their motive is very, very, it has got no boundaries. And when Trump comes up with this plan, this also has no boundaries. So let's clash them and see what happens. Because when the demolished site, it's called a war site, it's called a open prison. Now, when he develops it, these people will not be able to afford things back because they're used to being nurtured with funds from abroad. They're used to being nurtured from funds from the UN, from countries like Canada who have been pouring in money, uh, uh, and they have not put it to any use. So if they can afford to buy a house, you can enter that property. If you can't, you cannot enter that property. It's a valid thing right now because a war site is like right now without ownership. What they claim, it's like the it's very dicey because the way people fought for Israel's no right to their land is the same way that they will have to fight for their right to this land. So let them go through this effort, what Israel has been going through since thousands of years, Jay, thousands, not decades. It's thousands of years that Israelis are asking for a right to their land. They are feeling bad within 2 weeks of a week of Trump announcing that they have no right to Gaza. So let them feel the pinch a little bit. Let them go through a little bit of what the Israelis have gone through day in and day out. Jay.
Two things come to mind, Roopmati. One is you've added a fifth option, and that is the option of his legacy. What he wants the world to think of him. It's the Nobel Peace Prize aspiration. It's they should think of him as an achiever, a success in business and so forth. I don't think he'll ever achieve that, but that may be on his mind. The other thing that your comments, provoked in me is the notion of money. Okay, so let's say, as we discussed before, that Trump needs money. He needs to pay off Jordan. He needs to pay off Egypt or whatever other country he can get to take the Palestinians. He needs to establish new bases, not so easy, and create a presence. He was talking about that. Create a presence in the Middle East. Okay. But remember, this is the guy that said no boots on the ground. This is the guy that destroyed USAID. This is the guy who wants to be an isolationist, not spend anything. He wants to keep it all for Elon Musk, I guess, and himself. And Congress is not inclined to provide funding for that sort of thing, only because he is saying don't provide funding for that kind of thing. So we'd have to do a whole 180 about the money. Now, what is the money? Well, the money is paying off the countries that agree to take, that enter into transactions to take the Palestinians. Okay, then. And then building bases. Okay, that's defense. We spend almost $1 trillion on defense every year. So I guess they could find a few coins to build bases. But the real problem is who rebuilds Gaza? Who is that going to be? Is it going to be Mexico? Who is that going to be? Who is he going to get to do that? Is it going to be the U.S. Congress? It's going to cost a lot of money. I mean, hundreds of billions is a complete understatement. It'll cost trillions, just the way it will cost trillions to rebuild Ukraine if we ever, belly up to Ukraine, which we are not doing. So rebuilding a country that has been destroyed, rebuilding an area that has been bombed out, where the infrastructure is gone, all the institutions are destroyed, the housing is destroyed. That costs a lot of money, and it costs a lot of people. They have to come and look, and they have to design replacement structures. They have to do, utilities and the like. It would cost a ton of money in Ukraine, and it would cost a ton of money in Gaza. Who in the world is going to do that? And I suggest to you that he'd better find a way to do that, or what will happen. Somebody else will come in and make him look like a fool. And it could be, for example, organizations that are established by the Chinese, even by the Russians, by other countries that pull the rug out from under him and make him look like a fool for suggesting that the U.S. would own it, that the U.S. would develop it. I don't think he will ever have the capability to raise the money for the U.S. to do it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Jay, the money problem is the main issue that will line up, and investment. And like he has said that he is going to call for investments from all over the world. He's going to pool whoever wants to invest in that property. And it's like an open house that he has kept it, like whoever has the money and can afford it, come and develop this place. So it's like a true estate agent that he's gone for it, then he's like selling the property. But the thing is that, Jay, this plan put into place one thing was the return of the Palestinians back into Gaza, hidden with so many cadets of Hamas trickling back into Gaza. It stopped that. It really stopped that. And the ceasefire, Jay, which was going into stage two, where you had the rest of the hostages come back for return of 1,000 prisoners. The third stage would have been the dead bodies. So that would have never been reached. And they have been lying about the number of hostages. The return of the hostages is being delayed. All these tactics are delay tactics. And they have spent so many decades into this. They're used to these delay tactics. So for Trump's plan to come into place was first the stopping of the Palestinians returning back to Gaza and muddling over there and starting a colony, rat colony again, which would that has been stopped. So he wants them to first get out of Gaza. No, it's not your site. It's a demolition site. It's a war site. It's everything that you don't want to be in and which we want to develop. So it's that kind of a thing. Is just stop. Now the next step of the plan is the most difficult plan that you say. Where does he get the money from? The spending into Israeli defense fronts that the Iron Dome has to be replenished every time there's rockets coming from the Gaza Strip. So like a little bit of money would be used from that source, I think. And he's kept it. He is really eyeing Saudi Arabian investment, Jay. He plays to the Saudi Arabians because he relies on them a lot because they agreed to the Abraham Accords against all odds. And that has given him the confidence that he can get the Saudi Arabians to invest over there. And Jay, the refugees that will come in, 2.3 million refugees. You remember Germany took in 1 million Syrians into Germany and caused a mess of immigration in Europe. So these 2.3, they don't want to go and settle into the deserts of Jordan or Egypt. They would want to go back into Europe. So Europe is going to be very, very vulnerable to this kind of displacement. This migration is going to move into Europe, Jay. So there's so many aspects.
Yeah, no, there's so many aspects. And I just want to throw this at you. The three hostages that were released last weekend were different than the hostages who were released earlier. They were gaunt and on death's door. They looked terrible. They looked like people out of a concentration camp. And, you can draw a line from that. You can say that first, Hamas released people who looked okay, but then they ran out of people who looked okay. And now they have these three people who don't look okay because they have no one else. And then we keep hearing about hostages that are actually dead. Even Trump said that he believes the rest of them are largely dead. And that may be so. But then he demanded Hamas should resume releasing hostages by this Saturday. Okay?
Yes.
And if they didn't do that, and I quote, all hell would break loose. I don't know what he means by that. He puts these red lines in the sand and makes these threats. I don't know if that'll ever happen. I don't know if he can back that up. But certainly, if they don't release anybody else, or if the people they release are also gaunt and at death's door, or if the people they release are dead, that's not going to go well for the Palestinians and for Hamas. So my question for you is a wraparound question. What's going to happen here, Roopmati? I know it's a game in play. It's in play, and nobody knows where Trump goes on a given day. Nobody knows where the Middle East goes on a given day. Nobody knows where Hamas or the Palestinians go on a given day. But in your view, what's going to happen?
This ceasefire was always very vague, from ambiguous in the beginning, because this three-stage, the number of hostages, and you remember in our previous programs we had discussed that some of the hostages were even sold to other terror organizations, and so much of fighting going on. Definitely they have been putting these hostages in the front. Some tunnels must have had those. So the number and the bargaining power of Hamas has always been these hostages, and they have always lied about it. They have never been straight to the point people. And when he talks of this being done by Saturday, or all hell will be break loose, Ben Gavir has returned back into the coalition of Netanyahu because he feels now he is in a much better place. He agrees to this kind of agreement and keep on fighting against Hamas rather than getting into a ceasefire, allowing them to rejuvenate. There is so much of energy when they come with those hostages, Jay. You see them armed with new uniforms, with the green armbands, the aggressive weapons that they carry. Easily, these people are just gathering their strength. And an enemy you have to hit when they are low. If you allow them to come back, they are going to go for your neck. So they are never going to back down. And Jay, these people have no fear of their life. That is a very, very big thing, that when our third stage of the ceasefire talks of bargaining for dead bodies, the value that you give a life, and the dishonor that they give to Israeli lives, and the no care that they have for their own lives, if it means destroying Israel. That is the imbalance, the asymmetrical balance that they keep, and makes this fight all the more difficult. And that is why the aggressiveness of Trump becomes very, very important in this whole situation, because this kind of crazy idea has thrown back the Hamas into such a catch-22 situation. They don't know what to do, Jay. They were planning on coming back, regrouping, the civilians coming back. They're trying to, again have a hold, and they don't mind the time, Jay. They will take decades to come back into a little bit of power, because they need one suicide bomber to walk on the street. They need one jeep to ram into a busy street. So they don't have bigger goals. It's just to destroy, destroy, destroy. And Iran, with the nuclear weapons, plans to use the first nuclear weapon on Israel. So after this Hamas issue is completely solved, this Riviera is like a permanent solution to Hamas, because it does not give Hamas a place to come close to Israel. You go and thrive in the desert somewhere, a little bit far away from Israel, where Israel has time to think, Jay. So that is the big thing, Jay, in this.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Trump, with his madness, has really done a change up with this thing. And, he's drilling down on it, as he sometimes does. The chances are remote that he will be able to pull it off. But I'd say if he does pull it off, it'll be quite remarkable. And it could have a profound effect on the Middle East. Roopmati Khandekar, our, our geopolitical analyst. Thank you so much. We'll have to leave it there, but we'll see you again soon for more. I'm your host, Jay Fidell. Thanks to our viewers for watching. We'll see you next time. Aloha.
Hello, Ajay. Thank you very much.